Well, it's a fairly broad range, but most of it focuses obviously on the environmental issues. There are some other non-environmental permits that have to be obtained, but for the most part we're looking at all aspects of environmental issues and concerns, primarily water, air, waste disposal, erosion and sediment control, threatened and endangered species, stream crossings, anything along those lines that has potential to create a disturbance on the surface is now part of the total regulatory impact issue that has to be addressed in the permitting process here in Pennsylvania. Oh, absolutely. I think what the concerns people have that we see who are expressing concerns or resentment about Marcellus shale development basically are concerns not based on knowledge and fact, but based on misinformation that's been put on the internet or otherwise disseminated, and people pick it up and believe it. I think that the one thing that can be a challenge to put out to these folks is to ask them to illustrate or provide specific examples of where the incidences that they are alleging occurring have in fact occurred. And my experience in working both in coal and gas is that once you ask people to basically bear up and show that actual impact where it has occurred, that generally speaking those issues go away because they're all non-fact based concerns. I think they just picked up on this sort of the hysteria that's gone all through New York and even the city of Pittsburgh here that is rejected any shale development drilling within the city of Pittsburgh. Same thing. Not that there would be any shale development within these urban areas, but nevertheless I think they want to make a statement based on, again, misinformation. Well, it's a multifaceted approach. You need first of all competent people to manage the actual permitting process, people that can work with responsible consultants relative to knowing what the requirements are and fulfilling those obligations in a very thorough and diligent way, and then managing it through the regulatory review or the permit review process and getting it to the point of final completion. But above and beyond that, you need people who can also assess what the environment is, the regulatory environment, stay up to date on it. That may not necessarily be in the hands of the permit person that the company has employed. It could be someone else, whether it's a regulatory affairs person or government affairs person. And they have to be in a position where they disseminate that information throughout the company. They review it, evaluate it, put it in a form where it's easily understandable and digested by the people that actually get into the weeds on these issues, and make sure that they understand that there's a need to comply or how they need to comply. And then the other phase is you have to, in some regard, have an internal system to check your own compliance. Whether it's an environmental auditing program or regulatory auditing program, someone who can, or some people who can go out and make sure that you in fact are complying with what you've agreed to comply with vis-a-vis the permit application and the permit itself. Well, they've just become more complex. I mean, there's more and more information required. There's a greater level of detail, a greater level of analytical involvement now, knowing up front the quality and quantity, what the impact's going to be, and the analysis that will show what the impact is, both predicted as well as actual, and then managing that in a way that is in full compliance with the standards. Well, if we're talking about Pennsylvania, the industry definitely needs to support the governor in his current position and work with both the governor and the legislature then on any movement forward. And presumably that right now that looks like it's going to be some kind of impact fee. But that, we need to wait and see what the legislature decides is their approach, and then react to that. You know, ultimately it's in the hands of the people who elect the people who make decisions on the laws in this state, this Commonwealth. So that's where it has to go. But first and foremost, the industry needs to stay in full support of the governor and his position. You know, the people say that the industry needs to kind of pony up and bear its responsibility as it relates to providing some kind of revenue stream to the Commonwealth, or the citizens of the Commonwealth. This industry came into this state and didn't ask for a thing, and has in the process created 88,000 jobs, probably in 2010 generated 900 million, give or take, in terms of increased revenue to the state, sales tax, income taxes, issues like that. And that's where the people need to recognize that we are contributing, and independent of a separate tax. There's a great deal of revenue being developed and put into the proper places within the Commonwealth as a result of those direct, indirect jobs, as well as the taxes that are already being paid. I don't know that the timeline can be reduced. I think we've all seen, as we work within the regulatory process over the years, that again, things don't become simpler, they become more complex. Really the way we're going to expedite the process, if there in fact is a way to expedite it, is to know exactly what needs to be gathered, what needs to be submitted, how it needs to be submitted, and do it in a way that maybe there's no stone left unturned, so that the back and forth that's sometimes involved in the permit review process is shortened. The number of deficiencies are reduced, and that will move the issue along at a much quicker pace. But the other side is these agencies need to have more and more qualified people to review these applications, and better coordination among the different agencies. Sometimes the company itself can help with that coordination, but a lot of times it's an internal mechanism, or an intercommunication issue between all these agencies that sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't work. And that's really incumbent on the industry and the overseers of the process to kind of keep an eye on that and make sure that it works in a way, or is improved in a way, that it's the most effective process. Well, I think it's just hearing all the different opinions, perspectives of people. Obviously, I agree with some, I don't agree with others, but you need to know what that range is of agreement and disagreement, and be in a position where you can take that knowledge back and do something productive with it. And whether it's individually, whether it's back to your company, or whether it's back to the associations that you're involved with, and get industry to understand where people are, where they're coming from, and react and adjust to that reaction, is perhaps the best thing someone can get, at least someone like myself can gather from an environmental summit like this.